Thanks to clue hunters, manuscripts of BIC, also known as BIC pages, are incredibly expensive. So expensive in fact that they're nearly as expensive as grimoire pages. Now that is something that should be taken advantage of, and in this video I'm going to tell you how. So whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe, as 63% of you watching my videos are not yet subscribed. Moving on. The method I'm going to talk about in this video is farming Elder Troves, but instead of actually sitting there and farming them, we're going to treat Elder Troves as a sort of farming patch or distraction from whatever else we were or should be doing. Basically, what this method involves is teleporting to the big front, aka the location where you fight Croesus, then gather a single trove and then return to whatever else you were doing. This theoretically can be done when doing literally anything in Runescape, but it's better suited if you can actually teleport back to whatever you're doing to minimize XP, GP, or time loss. A good example in which this method would work well with is killing locations that can be teleported to through lodestones or the graves of the elves. Take crystal trees for an example. It doesn't hurt much to teleport to the PVM hub, go into your Croesus portal, fish for one resource, and return to your skilling location. In fact, it takes about 35 seconds to do this, including returning to the original skilling location. The reason you go for the fishing resource is because it's faster to obtain one resource, get that proc, and get that tier 3 Elder Trove from fishing than it is from, let's say, the mining plot. Now, while it may seem counterintuitive to do this when skilling, it's well worth doing this, as I'll explain in monetary terms in this video later on. Now, this method may not work perfectly in combination with PVMing, but when you do bank, it might be a good idea to quickly grab a resource from the big front before you load up your preset and return to whatever boss you were doing. The amount of times you need to return per hour depends on your Pontifex ring upgrades, which is the sole requirement for this method. To obtain the Shadow Pontifex ring, you must complete the City of Sintistan quest. And for the method to be as profitable as it can be, you must have at least the tier 3 version of the ring, which will be a cheap upgrade as you'll need 1000 anima of 3 types added to the ring. Now, since anima is so cheap, you might as well fully upgrade the ring, also turning it into a passive ring, which means you don't actually need to wear this ring or have it with you anymore, giving you these Elder Troves without needing to use the item itself. It will also increase the amount of times you have to return to this spot from 12 minutes down to 7.5 minutes, because you'll be getting 8 troves per hour instead of 5. The final upgrade of the ring has to be done at Wahisitul at the Sintistan Cathedral. Now, the reason that big troves are the best is quite simple. They drop those costly big pages I mentioned in the intro, and those will be the majority of your profit, as you'll be seeing in the loot breakdown. To give you a good idea of how effective this method really is, I present to you the loot of 5000 tier 3 Elder Troves, which is the equivalent of doing this method or farming there for 625 hours at 8 troves per hour. These 5000 Elder Troves were collected by my buddy David when he was AFKing 200 mil fishing at the big front. Now, while we're not planning to actually train and gaining experience here, David's massive sample size is a fantastic bit of data. Now, he was kind enough to record this for me while he streamed his opening on Twitch, which you can find linked in the description below. The total loot, including the approximate price of extreme potions, is around 2.3 billion GP in terms of actual sale value. Almost 42% of the total value of these 5000 Elder Troves came from the big pages, or in other words, you would have lost out on around 960 mil if you were farming a different kind of trove. Maybe a little bit less because they drop, different pages, but a lot of money would have been lost. The second most valuable item, to no surprise, are the Pernix Quiver Fragments, which the Witte Jager received 499 of, amounting for 38.1% of the total value of these 5000 troves. Out of all of this loot, you can expect around 459k per tier 3 Elder Trove from the big front. This means that you're able to make around 3.7 million GP per hour from this method. Now, you might be thinking, Protox, that's kinda bad, and yes, in the grand scheme of moneymakers, that is pretty bad, but you're forgetting one thing. This method barely requires any time at all other than some teleports in between whatever you're doing. Since a run to the big front and back from any location you can quickly teleport back to resume your activities takes around 35 seconds, this method in Monko math terms is almost 47 million GP per hour. Now if you're slower, let's say it takes you 60 seconds or a minute, it would still be over 27.5 million GP per hour, which means that if you're doing something that is making you less money than that, you absolutely should be doing this method. And on the other side, of course, if you can make more than 48 million GP per hour minus your input costs, this method isn't worth it for you. But there are many situations or places you'll be making 48 million GP per hour or more net profit. Therefore, this is technically one of the best and easiest moneymakers any player could and should be doing if they don't mind teleporting a bit every 7.5 minutes or whenever they are banking, let's say every 10 minutes. As long as you're doing it, you're making extra money. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it interesting. If you did, leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.